paintings and his connections. Richard's books, he's written 12 books. He's won several awards, and he just won, was given an award with National Achievement Aboriginal Foundation. What is it? National Aboriginal Achievement Foundation for the arts, right?
Media and Communications.
Media and Communications. He just won that. So it's going to be broadcast
April 13th.
April 13th. So, and he's won many other awards as well for his writing. He's also a teacher. He's received his honorary doctorate.
Wow.
So he's quite an amazing man, and has touched a lot of lives, and I'm sure many of you have read his books. He's just written a new book called Indian Horse, which is just out at Chapters now. It's an amazing book about residential school and hockey, as Richard says, and many other things. And so hopefully, you know, if you haven't read his books, you maybe will pick up one, because there are many that will appeal to all of you. So I will just let you, Richard, maybe say what you wish, and maybe get a little bit more idea of where you're coming from, and
Sure.
and then you could just go for as long as you wish, and talk whenever you wish. And because this is the way we have school and so forth, if you have to leave, please don't feel that you have to stay. All right? So Richard Wagamese, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Moshkote bijiki anakwat indiznikas. Wabsimung dunjiba nume nedodem. In honor of the Treaty 7 hosts, I introduced myself traditionally so that they know who's invading their territory. And it means that my name in Ojibwe is Buffalo Cloud. My home is a place called White Dog in Ontario, and my clan is the Sturgeon Clan. So that's who I am. And they call me Richard Wagamese. And the name Wagamese actually doesn't mean anything. If you ask somebody from the Ojibwe territory in northwestern Ontario, what does that mean? They'll go, doesn't mean anything. Because one of the stories that's part and parcel of who I am started long before I was even born. And in 1867, the government sent treaty registrars out all across the country to enroll Native people in the treaty process. So they whistled, and all the Native people came running out of the bush and bogs, and they started writing their names on the treaty register. And when they couldn't get all of somebody's name, or if it was way too long, they either just named them something else, like Green or Kelly or something like that, or Fisher from where I'm from, or they would only write down on the treaty register the parts of your Aboriginal name that they could get. And so out of my name, they could only get Wagamese, not the whole phrase. And so Wagamese by itself kind of alludes to something, but it doesn't say anything without the last part of the phrase. And with the phrase, it means man walking by the crooked water. And what that references is my great-grandfather's trap line ran along the Winnipeg River, which goes like this all the way through northwestern Ontario to Lake Winnipeg, and that's the crooked water. And the man walking beside the crooked water was my great-grandfather. And that was our name. But because they could only hear and get a certain amount of it, they got Wagamese, and that's what we became. And some of my Northern Cree friends say it means crooked little pea or something like that. Maybe somebody can help me with it. But, and they laugh about that because they tell me that. And that's what happens when names get fractured. So part of my history started long before I was even here. But my family and my clan and my people are all from northwestern Ontario. We're hunter-gatherers. We're bush people. We were trappers and fishers and hunters and people who lived and moved seasonally. We didn't have one set village. We were all over the place. And it may explain the reason why I traveled in my working life all across Canada and started in different places all the time. And my people lived as closely to traditional lives as they could up until residential schools came along. And then bit by bit they were taken from their homes and their camps and taken to residential schools and introduced to a whole different kind of philosophy, and worldview and institution and regime and all of that stuff. And it changed them, and it changed the lifestyle, and it changed the structure and fabric of our cultural way and our spirituality. And one of the things that this book, Indian Horse, is about that dissolution of that cultural way. And it's about the disappearance of a way of life and a way of being. It's about the disappearance of a way of expression. It's about the changes and the evolutions in learning how to accept an outside way of looking at the land and at the universe and at each other, and how that slowly and sometimes abruptly causes us to become different people. And it's also about hockey. And it's about the joy and the abandon and the wild freedom that comes from joining with a group of other people in a common pursuit of happiness called hockey. And this young man who's in this book is in a residential school, and he finds the game of hockey, and in that juxtaposition of ideas and philosophies is the whole story of our people, of all of our people who were affected by the residential school process. Because every one of us, every one of those people who were in those schools wanted to find a way and a means to bring joy back into their life. And it was impossible. And so in this book, I gave my title character, Saul Indian Horse, an outlet, a joyous outlet in the game of hockey, so that he could transcend all that difficulty and all that darkness and all that brutality by experiencing the freedom that came in the game of hockey. And it's also about redemption. It's about reclaiming that lost and dissolved way of being. It's about reclaiming your sense of yourself as who you're created to be, and reclaiming your own selfhood in the end, despite everything that happened to you. And to a large degree, it's my story. And to a large degree, it's the story of every person who's ever been affected by the residential school process. And in a very large degree, it's about Canada. Because the Canadian story is very much about the fact of residential schools. We can't tell the story of Canada, we can't tell the history of this country without this inclusion. It wouldn't be a proper history. It wouldn't be a complete history by leaving this out. We can't tell the story of our development as a nation without talking about this, because mistakes were made. Philosophical and federalist and political and sociological mistakes were made that resulted in those institutions being so prevalent across this country. So to omit that is to deny the realities of our own history. And it's also about Canada, because when we join together in the pursuit of something joyous and free, like hockey or like a national consciousness, we all find a degree of freedom, and we all find a degree of holistic expression that frees us and enables us to work together, not only just in that game, not only just in that one little joy, but in everything that we experience. So metaphorically, it's a story about us, all of us who call Canada our home, all of us who self-identify as Canadian people, because we're all in the same pursuit of something. And the something that we're all in pursuit of is belonging and acceptance and the ability to give and the ability to share. And we can find that in our homes, around our kitchen tables, in our living rooms. We can find it in our neighborhoods. We can find it in our towns and villages, in our cities. We can find it in our society, and we can find it in our nation. And that's what we're all trying to get to. And so in a very big degree, this book serves as a story of all of those things. And it's been well received. People say that it's brutal, and that it's harrowing, and that it's dark, and it is all of those things. People say that it's one of the greatest sports books ever written, and it is. They say that it's sad, and that it's empowering, and that it's powerful, and it is all of those things. And I'm really glad to hear all that, because it's the story of us. It's the story of Canada, and we are all of those things. And if we don't admit to ourselves that at one time in our history, together, There was brutality, there was harrowing experiences, there was darkness, there was sadness, there was joy. We're not allowing ourselves to tell ourselves the whole history of our country, and we need to do that. How many people in this room right now want to be writers? Okay, a goodly number. So what that means, folks, is that you're storytellers. And you're reacting to the urge inside your belly to proclaim yourself and identify yourself and use your energy to reach out to other people, because that's what storytellers do. And if you have that passion and you have that direction and you feel that energy inside you, then what needs happen is something really, really complicated that's hard to do. And that's just do it. Just do it. People ask me all the time, what do I have to do to be a storyteller? What do I have to do to be a writer? What do I have to do to do what you do? I say just sit down and do it. Because we already all know how. When we were little kids, this high, something really magical happened in our lives. And it happened to all of us, regardless of what our background is. And linguists can't explain it. People who study the ins and outs of etymology, how words are shaped, can't explain it. Psychologists and sociologists and anthropologists can't explain it because it's magical. And there's this little hidden switch that sits in the middle of both hemispheres of your brain. Little magical switch that nobody's ever found, but we know it's there. It gets flipped on one day. And it gets flipped on, and your little eyeballs go like this. And you go, wow. And you feel your mouth move, and you feel your throat constrict and expand, and you feel your tongue click against your teeth, and you feel all these things, and you realize, I can tell everybody what I saw, what I felt, what I heard, what I seen, what I imagined. I could tell my dad, I could tell my mother, I could tell my aunt all about it. I could do all of that. And you start to do it. Automatically, it's magical. And here's how it happens. You run in to where your mother is, or your father, and you grab them by the shirt sleeves. And this language thing, the switch has been thrown, and you just can't hold it back. And you run up and you go, you'll never guess what happened. Me and Jimmy, we were down at the playground, and we were having this contest on the swing set to see who could swing the highest. So we were pumping our legs and going back and forth and back and forth, and we get higher and higher and higher. And I was looking back over my shoulder while I was swinging, and I could see the bar of the swing. And I was thinking to myself, I was swinging higher than everybody ever swung in the whole history of the entire world. And Jimmy's right beside me, and we're going crazy because we're going as high as we can. And the sky is appearing, the ground is appearing, the sky is appearing, the ground is appearing. And it's so wonderful, I can't believe it. And we're trying to get as high as we could. And Jimmy yells over to me, he says, the next time I go near the ground, I'm jumping off. And I thought, that guy's crazy, and I'm looking at the sky, and I'm looking at the ground, and I'm thinking, no, he's going to hurt himself. And he jumps and he makes it, and the swing starts twirling around crazily, and it's spinning and spinning around. And Mr. Collins is walking his baby down in front of the swing set, and the empty swing couple and hits him on the back of the head. And he falls down and loses control of the baby carriage, and he starts rolling down the hill toward the intersection where there's two trucks coming from both directions. And we can see that the baby carriage is going to go right through the intersection, so everybody starts running after it. And I jump off the swing, and Joy and Jimmy and Mr. Collins are running down the sidewalk trying to get this fireman from over there, and teachers from the school, and even the preacher from the church, and we're all running down after this baby carriage because we want to prevent this horrible accident. And I was running by a tree, and I was running really fast, and a squirrel came running out from behind the tree, and I tripped over the squirrel, and I fell down right in front of Mr. Collins, and he tripped over me and fell through the air. And when his hands came down, it came down the bars of the baby carriage, and everything was okay. And your parents look at you when you do something like that, and they just go, wow. Wow. And each and every one of us has had that experience to one degree or another. And if your mothers or your fathers, you've had that experience with your young ones, you'll have that experience one of these days. Won't be able to stop talking. Why? Because Creator gave all of us a gift. Actually gave us two gifts. And He gave us two gifts that no other animal in creation has in conjunction with each other. Gave us the ability to dream. I have a dog, and my dog dreams in front of the fire. Look over there, the fire's burning, and she's going. And I know she's dreaming. She's chasing something in her dreams. I can see it happening. So I know that animals dream. But what animals can't do is they can't awake and then tell another animal what they dreamed about. We're the only animal in creation that has those two gifts in conjunction. We can dream and we can tell each other about the nature and content of those dreams. That's Creator's gift to us as a species, us as a human family. And it's given to us so that we can do this. We can pull everybody around us, and we can bring people closer. And we can say the magical words that everybody knows. You're going to love these words in about a year and a half. Your mom's going to look at you and she's going to say, the magical words. Once upon a time. Once upon a time. And you know what happens? When you do that with people, and you start with a story, everybody goes like this. Everybody leans in. Everybody. And if you want proof of it, have a gathering, start a fire. When it gets start a fire, and as this fire starts, watch what happens to people. Nobody will go like this. Everybody will see that fire and they'll go like this. Everybody. Romanians, Muslims, everybody will go like that. Because of another thing that we have in common. That in each one of our cultural backgrounds, there was a fire in the night. Somewhere. We gathered around a common fire for community and for shelter, for belonging. Every one of us at one point in our history did that. And we carry the memory of that right inside us. And we lean toward that fire because something draws us to it. And what we want to hear is the sound of one voice talking. We want to hear the sound of one voice saying, once upon a time, there was these three men walking across the desert. Or something like that. And we hear those words and we lean in because we want that. Because we're connected to that dream. And the magic of words pulls us into the power of that dream. And every one of us shares that common experience. And we get pulled into that gift of storytelling and dreaming and imagining, and we want it. We want it. And so we're all storytellers. We're all born to do that. We're hardwired for it. But sometimes something happens to us. Sometimes, depending on where we're raised, we get told that children should be seen and not heard. And that's what we learn. We learn to go. I did that a lot, first 9 years of my life. Because I was supposed to be seen and not heard. We get told by our friends, oh, that's a dumb idea. Oh, how'd you think of that? We get told by our teachers, oh, that's not a proper sentence. Oh, there's not a verb and a subject in that sentence. We get told all of these things. And that gift of wild imagining and dreaming slowly starts to get closed up a little bit. So that by the time we're older, it's really hard for us to tell a story. It's really hard for us to just go, me and Jimmy were down at the park, we're on the swing set. We forget, we lose that youthful magic that happens when that switch gets thrown. But as storytellers, you feel that craving inside of you, find that switch again, and flip it. And when you do it, amazing things happen. This is my 12th published title in 18 years. That's not bad production. That's not bad production. 12 titles, 18 years. Now, would you suppose that I might be telling you a story if I told you that I don't have any training as a writer? Would you think I was trying to tell you some kind of story if I told you that my education stopped at grade 9? Would you think I was trying to tell you some kind of story if I said that everything that I've ever learned about writing and storytelling and speaking to people in public came from 2 libraries? the libraries that are all around us, the physical ones. I surrounded myself with books, and I read everything I could get my hands on. And the reason that I can write and be published today is because words taught me what a good sentence is. Words taught me how paragraphs are structured. Words taught me what a narrative arc is, because I read the masters and learned how they did it beautifully. I absorbed all that by osmosis. I created this amazing frame of reference that's built of biology and history and science and geography and biography and music and drama, and all of those things that I found in the library gave me the education that I needed. And then there was another library. This one is a living one. It lives, they live, and they breathe, and they walk, and they talk, and they teach, and they heal. And they were the wisdom carriers of my people and wisdom carriers of other First Nations across the country, who sat with me and recognized that energy in me, because they were the ones who told me I was supposed to be a storyteller. I didn't know that. And they recognized that energy, and they sat down with me, and they said, oh, you know, when you tell this is what you did. And they'd answer all my questions. And they were the ones who told me when I was 24 years old, you're supposed to be a storyteller. And I went, how do I do that? And they said, you ask us, and we'll tell you. And they did. And eventually I became a journalist. Here's a funny story. I'm hitchhiking across Canada. I'm 24 years old. I'm still lost. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm in a Native Employment Center. I see a job on a board like that. It says, Native writer needed. I went, okay, well, I'm Native. I kind of sort of want to be a writer, and the elders told me that I am a storyteller, so okay, I qualify. So I went, I got the card filled out, and I went over to the job site, and I talked to the editor, and he says to me, he says, well, do you have any experience? And I said, well, no. And he said, do you have any education or training? I said, oh, yeah. I told him I got a 2-year diploma from some technical arts college in southern Ontario. And he says, well, can I see your transcripts? And I said, well, no. Because, see, there was this fire. And I lost all my stuff. My home burned down. That's why I'm hitchhiking across the country. I have to start over somewhere. And he said, well, okay, come back. This is on Wednesday. And he said, I'm busy. We're trying to put an edition out. Come back on Monday morning, and I'll get you to do some rewrites. And if we like your stuff, then we'll see about hiring you as a writer. So I walked out, and I thought, okay, now what do I do? And I did the only thing that I knew how to do. I went right to the library, and I asked the librarian, give me everything you got on journalism. Everything. And she brought over, and we went and gathered this big, huge pile of books, and I sat in a corral by the window, which is where I always sat. And I went through all these journalism books. And there were books in there that had exercises, writing exercises. One of the books was called The Reporter's Handbook. And I looked, and I ran across the road to the confectioner, and I bought a pile of those 3-ring notebooks and a box of pencils. And I sat by that window, and I read journalism, and I wrote those writing exercises Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, Thursday all day and night, Friday all day and night, Saturday all day and night, Sunday and Monday morning up to the time it took enough time to get to the job interview. Wrote and read all that time. And I went to that job interview, and he gave me these stories to rewrite out of the Globe and Mail, of all things. And I rewrote them, and that was how I got my first journalism job. That was how I got my first journalism job. And you know how I did it? It wasn't that I was so incredibly gifted and so incredibly smart. It was because I believed what they told me. For the first time in my life, believed what someone told me. And they told me I was supposed to be a storyteller. So I did it. I believed that. And I went in and I learned how to write as a journalist in 5 days and got a job. In 1991, I became the first Native Canadian in the history of Canada up to this point to win a national newspaper award for column writing when I was with the Calgary Herald. Nobody's done it since. Hopefully maybe some of you will do it. Somebody's going to do it again sometimes, but right now I'm the only one. After 5 days in a library. I've been syndicated. I've been in virtually every major newspaper in the country. I went from there to radio, and I did the same thing. I learned how to broadcast in radio by taping radio shows, and then handwriting them out, and then reading them back into the tape recorder again until I got it pitch perfect. And I got a radio job exactly the same way I got the writing job. In television, I did the same thing. I videotaped. Remember those videotapes? I videotaped people doing stand-ups. And then I'd stand in front of the mirror and I'd mimic the way they used their hands and how they expressed themselves and how they sometimes turned their face sideways to the camera. And I did all those things while I was memorizing the stand-up material and pretended the mirror was a camera. And when the opportunity came, I went to a TV station. I did the same thing on tape, and I got a job in television. And I've since become a documentary producer. That's part of my history. Why? How could I do that? What happened? Because I believed what somebody told me. I believed what they said, that I'm supposed to be a storyteller. And that knowledge and that understanding empowered me to do amazing things. I can't explain them. I can't give you a rational explanation of why all this stuff went down in my life, except that I believe what they said. I believe what they said. And because of that belief, I found strength and I found articulation and I found things in myself I didn't know existed before. And I became a storyteller. And when I wrote my first book in 1994, well, it was 1993 actually, it came out in 94, I went into a friend's basement and I said to myself, I'm going to try and write this book and I'm going to give myself 3 years, and if nothing's happening, I'll go back to journalism. And I wrote that first book in 8 months, and it came out in 1994. The first piece of fiction I ever wrote in my life. Never wrote a short story, never wrote anything, except what I had to do up to grade 9. And it was written and published, and you know what? That novel now, Keeper and Me, and you read it, has sold probably over 48,000 copies in Canada since it was published. And it still keeps on going. And every book after that has been just another further blessing and another further endorsement of the belief in that I'm a storyteller. And so I'm transferring that message on to you today, those of you who want to be writers, that you already are. You're a storyteller, and if you go from there and use that energy, you can create and do whatever you want. As long as you're willing to dream big, and as long as you're willing to do the work that's required to make the dream come true, you can have anything you want. Because you see, one of the other things that my elders gave me, and that in my life I have sometimes often forgotten and suffered for it, is that Creator didn't put us into a world of impossibility. Didn't do that for us. What Creator did for us was to put us in a world of possibility. That's where we live. We live in this world of possibility. And there's a lot of conflicting messages that will try to convince you of the opposite. That you have to do this to succeed. That you have to do this to succeed. You got to do that. You got to get this. You got to do that. You got all of these things that you gotta have in order to succeed. But you only have to do one thing. You only have to believe. That's all you have to do. You can go to university. It's awesome. Although I've never experienced that. But I understand that it's awesome. And you can get your credentials and you get your training, but if you don't have the foundation of belief, it's going to be a wrestling match. But if you choose to believe first, and then you do all of that work, and you chase after that dream, you get whatever you want. Whatever you want. I promise you that. Because it's manifested itself in my life time after time. And every time it does, I just go like that little kid in the swing set. You won't believe what just happened to me. I was like that last Friday night after the National Aboriginal Achievement Awards. I'm standing there and I'm looking at all these people, and I felt like running around and grabbing hands. Going, you won't believe what just happened. I went over grade 9 education. I got to run around. I was up there on the stage with all these other 15 national achievers.